All right, so we are in my favorite time of year. It is right at the cusp of the holiday season, which the holiday season begins with us around the Wright House on November 1st. And here's the reason why. We own a children's retail business with toys and clothes, and it becomes real Christmassy really fast. November 1, Jimlin and I start opening the store on Sundays. It's open 7 days a week. So Mrs. Wright is actually at Hot Tots 7 days a week from November 1st till Christmas Eve. She is amazing, which I got to tell y'all a story last night. And this happens during the holiday season. It's crazy. Oh, dear goodness. So she's up at the store, and our monogrammer, Kathy, God love Kathy. We love Kathy. She decides she's going to work late. And she's going to get caught up on monograms. And so I'm calling up there. I've made dinner, and I've got dinner ready for Jimlin when she comes home because I am the most amazing husband ever, which brings me to another story 6 years ago from the recording of this podcast. I proposed to Mrs. Wright. I'm going to tell y'all that proposal story in a little later, but until then, when I finish this story. So I call her and I'm like, hey, are you coming home? I got dinner ready. And she said, well, I'm going to stay a little while longer. Kathy's doing monograms. And so as long as she's going to stay and do monograms, I'm going to get caught up on some gift wrapping, because at Hot Tots, we wrap all the gifts, no matter how big or how small, for free. Mrs. Wright and the girls wrap it for free. And I see the Christmas wrap bill every year, and it is not free. It is insane, and Mrs. Wright demands that we have the best wrapping paper, and she's very persnickety about how the gifts are wrapped. So that's just a little bit of extra you get from the Hot Tots. So anyways, a little bit of time goes by, and she still hasn't come home. So I'm like, hey, do you want me to bring you dinner? And she said, no. She said, Kathy's probably going to be finished up in a little bit, and I'm going to go deliver some gifts on my way home. I'll be home in a little bit. Well, I decide at 9 o'clock to go, to get in bed, get ready for bed. I'm thinking she's going to be home pretty soon. And I hate her being up at the store by herself, but she says she's coming home. So I kept calling. She's like, no, I'll be home. And so finally, around 9 o'clock, she gets home. I'm lying in bed. I'm getting sleepy because I've been reading A Christmas Carol. I'm actually going to read A Christmas Carol this year. I haven't read it since I was a kid. Watch it every single year. The TNT version from 2000, I think it was 2000. That was the year that Rylan was born. That TNT did a TV production of A Christmas Carol starring Patrick Stewart. I think Patrick Stewart actually produced it. And I think because that was Rylan's first Christmas, that's always been a real special version of A Christmas Carol for me. And so around December 20th, every single year, I watch A Christmas Carol. And when the girls were growing up, every single year around December 20th, we always all watched A Christmas Carol, which we'll get to the real point of this entire podcast. So got a lot of things lined up on my brain, going to knock it all out. So anyway, back to last night. Mrs. Wright finally gets home, and she's eating the sweet potato and black bean tacos with homemade avocado lime sauce that I made. Yes, and they were just as fantastic as they sound. And she's eating them. She's telling me, she's yelling from the kitchen, these are so good. I'm like, I know, weren't they really good tonight? I was really proud of myself. And she never comes back, and she's clanking around the kitchen. I doze off. I wake up, and there's still lights on, clanking, and I know it's happened. It's the holiday season. Mrs. Wright is having a Mrs. Wright adrenaline rush. And when this happens, folks, it happens at very specific times. The night before we leave for a trip, Mrs. Wright is going to have an adrenaline rush. If you ever want to come to the Wright house, make sure we just left for a vacation, because the house is going to be spotless, because Mrs. Wright has gone through and organized the closets, cleaned everything up, dusted everything. For some reason, she wants to make sure when we're not there that our home is extra clean. Don't ask me. It's just the way she rolls. Then, and also during the holidays, if it's not a night that we're about to leave town, it's just during the holidays randomly. If she stays at the store late, the adrenaline starts flowing, and she comes home and she takes it out on our house. I mean, she will clear cupboards. She last night was, and we have a housekeeper that does a fantastic job. She does a really good job. Oh, but Miss Wright was climbing up on countertops, dusting the top of of shelves and cabinets and wiping down glass and just clearing countertops and wiping them down and sterilizing everything, did every stitch of laundry. And all the while, I'm in that kind of like not so asleep, the kind of like a doze where you can't tell if you've ever fallen asleep. So finally, I just get up and I shut the door, which I hardly ever do. And look, I'm very, very sensitive about the fact that I believe a husband and a wife should always go together. No, go to bed together. No one should ever sleep on the couch. You always sleep together. You go to sleep together. You give each other a kiss and you go to bed together. No sleeping on the couch. No one going to bed before the other. I had dozed off, so I have an excuse. But she's still out there. And I'm like, and now I'm just getting flustered. I'm like, oh gosh, it's an adrenaline night. Who knows when she's going to come to bed? And here's what I worry about too. I'm a concerned husband. She works herself to the bone every holiday season. So I'm worried that she's going to get sick. I'm thinking to myself, by this time, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning the last time I looked at the clock. She's still up, clanking around. Things are happening. Lights are on. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to go out there and get in the middle of it. But I'm thinking she's not going to have any sleep tonight because we had someone coming to look at doing some work to the house at 8 a.m. the next morning. And so I knew by this time she was at most going to get 5 hours. So then at 4 o'clock, I wake up, I open the door, and I see her just passed out cold on the couch. Well, now I'm really pissed because I have a rule. We go to bed together. And even if you stay up past the time that I go to sleep, you come to bed. But then I also realized the Christmas tree was up and lit. We have not decorated it because we're waiting for the girls to come home. There's Christmas music playing on the TV on one of the YouTube channels. Have you guys seen, if you have a Frame TV, or I guess any TV for that matter, but we have one of the Frame TVs, and YouTube has some amazing like cozy jazz or holiday jazz or pretty much anything you want that you can just leave it on. It's like this AI generated scene of like a New York coffee shop with music playing. You just leave it on all the time. So it's music and just, it's really cool for creating a nice little ambiance. And so I have to admit, I walked in there and there's Mrs. Wright on the couch, out cold, and the Christmas tree's lit up. The Frame TV is playing a nice little cozy jazz song. And so I figure what she's done is she just got caught up in one, she'd been working herself to where she was exhausted and she laid down and she went to sleep. That's what happened last night. I was really flustered about that. But that brings me to the next story before I get to the actual reason for today's podcast, the engagement story. So again, 6 years ago to the date of recording this podcast, and I am recording this on November the 19th, 2024. I had decided 6 years ago today, I was going to ask Mrs. McKee to become Mrs. Wright, and thus would become the couple that you now know as Mr. and Mrs. Wright. And so I had concocted this idea that, as those of you who see any of our social media, either on the Wrights, Mr. and Mrs., which is my account that I manage, or the Hot Tots account, which is our store account, you know that every Christmas I dress up like Buddy the Elf. I am the resident clown, stooge, court jester, whatever. And so it all started that very first year that Jimlyn and I met. And so I had this great plan. And what I was going to do to propose is I had her convinced that we were going to do a little video for social media. And I was going to dress up like Buddy the Elf, and we were going to sit at one of the little children's tables that sits in Hot Tots all the time, and she was going to interview me, and we were going to film her interviewing me. And I had written a poem, and at the end, it would read, "Will you marry me?" And so, I mean, literally, we were going to catch on her face reading the poem for the first time, because I wasn't going to give it to her. I was going to hand it to her like it was my resume. I would say, well, I don't have a resume, but I did write you this poem. So she was going to be reading it for the first time, and the last line was going to be, "Will you marry me?" How awesome would that have been? We had the videographer there, and here's the thing you got to understand. Mrs. Wright fell for it, and you can't get anything past Jimlyn. She was sniffing out this proposal. I didn't think there was any way in the world I was ever going to be able to do this without her knowing. So I was so pumped. And we had Lauren and Reagan, that have worked at Hot Tots longer than any of our other staff, they were there. Bridget Hooper, who is Jimlin's best friend, she was just waiting for me to give her the signal that I had asked, and she said yes, and she was coming over. I had a whole bunch of friends waiting at a restaurant that's in our shopping center, ready to surprise Jimlin, to walk her over there with the ring on her finger, ready to announce that she was now engaged. It was a huge deal. I was so excited. Now, I had set up this little table where we were going to do this little mock interview for the skit in what used to be the candy store at Hot Tots. And there was this unit that had shelves, drawers. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, and I put the table right by these drawers where there was like supplies below the candy bins. And I thought, I don't want to be bumbling around whenever she reads, "Will you marry me?" looking for this ring. I want to make sure I open the correct drawer. I don't want anything to go wrong here, right? So I put a little hot tamale, which hot tamales were really special for us because Jim likes to say we never dated. She never wanted to say we dated and we didn't date that long. I mean, I think it was 129 days from the first time we ever went to coffee to the time that I proposed to her this night that we were not either husband and wife or engaged to be married. And so those early days, for those first, however many months, we would come home after she finished up at Hot Tots. We'd come back to the house and literally just sit and listen to music and eat hot tamales. I mean, for hours until the sun went down. Sometimes we wouldn't even really talk that much. We never turned the TV on. We would just sit there and listen to music, eating hot tamales. That's all we did. That's our favorite candy. And so that was kind of a special thing with our relationship anyway. Well, I had a hot tamale setting on one of the handles of the drawers to notate which drawer the ring was in. So when she read it, I would know exactly which drawer to open, get it, boom, there's the ring. It was going to be awesome. Well, Jimlin, being as prepared as she always is, she was going to make sure the store looked perfect for this video. So she's cleaning up, she's tidying up, she's got the table set up where we discussed it was going to be in the candy store. And I'm standing and watching her. The camera had just got set up. My videographer had just set up the camera. I was standing about 10 feet away, and I see out of the corner of my eye, she reaches down, she opens the drawer, and I see her about the time she reaches in, gets the ring box, opens it up, looks at it, and goes, slams it shut, puts it back in the drawer, shuts it, and runs off. And I just was like, I'm not going to tell you guys what I said, but it was, you have got to be beeping kidding me. I probably said that 3 times. All the blood rushed from my head down to my toes. My stomach sank to the floor. I couldn't believe it. And bless Jimlin's heart. She was a disaster. She was such a mess. She's like, my hands are sweating. And she's like, she wanted to take her shirt off. She was just all having just hot flashes, and she's like, she didn't know what to do. And she said, well, you can do it another time. You can do it another time. And I'm like, no, that's not the way this works. And so, fortunately, I realized how terrible she felt. But I was not going to let this night go by without the engagement. I was asking this girl to marry me one way or another. So I said, well, come on, let's finish this. Let's go ahead and go through with this. And we went and we sat down at the little table, and I got the poem out and I read it to her, and I asked her to marry me. And for those of you who listen to the show that know us well, you know that a lot of our relationship is spent at Hot Tots. Mrs. Wright spends a lot of her life, her energy, her sweat, her blood, her tears, all of it at Hot Tots. And where she goes, I go. So we spend a lot of time at Hot Tots. So it's really so appropriate that this engagement happened at Hot Tots. But anyway, it was a disastrous proposal, but nevertheless, I became Mr. Hot Tots, or as some of the kids call me, Mr. Jimlin, and we are absolutely living happily ever after. Now, in that long diatribe, I mentioned a couple of things. One, I told you that when the girls were growing up, we watched A Christmas Carol every single year from the year Rylan was born in the year 2000 till now. I mean, I will watch it, and the girls are usually home by that time, and so we try to cram in as many of our movies as we possibly can that we've watched through the years. But there's also a lot of other things that we do throughout the holidays that are these traditions that I created when the girls were really, really little that I think are the reason why. Well, I know for sure with Abby in particular, the youngest. Abby this year, she called me up and she had received a text about someone wanting her to kind of alter her Thanksgiving plans. And she said, "Dad, can you believe this?" She said, "You know how I am about our traditions. There's no way I am missing any of Thanksgiving. I'm cooking the meal. I've already got my menu set because Abby does all the cooking. She's a chef. She's amazing. She makes these buttered sweet potatoes that are they're stupid. They could literally be the centerpiece of a restaurant. I'm not just saying that because she's my daughter. I mean, they're so good that these sweet potatoes, even if you don't like sweet potatoes, these brown buttered sweet potatoes that she makes, it's like nothing you've ever had in your life. Anyway, so she's amazing. And she was irate because someone had actually suggested that she alter her Thanksgiving plans. She was having none of it. And both girls will be here on Thanksgiving and they will be here Christmas. Now, why is this? Why do they choose to be with Dad? Because if you know anything, that their mother and I split up, and we remain friends. And in fact, thanks to my amazing wife, Mrs. Jimelin, their mom has actually spent Thanksgiving with us a couple times because for the sake of the girls and holding it all together, and my wife Jimelin knowing how much the holidays mean to us, she has done everything she could to make sure to enhance our traditions, keep them going, and it's just one of the many things that I love about Jimelin. But is the reason because they have a horrible mother that they choose to be with Dad over the holidays? Nope, absolutely not. 100% not. But what they do know is that our traditions are going to be recognized with like absolute vigor at Dad's. And that's what I want to encourage all of you during this holiday season to take stock of is if you're that family that's just starting out, you young families that are starting out and you're just so giddy about your first Christmas pictures and getting your first tree and everything's so new. Understand something. There will come a point in time where you're going to be battling with in-laws for time at the house over the holidays. It's just going to happen. And just so you know, I will never be the one. I actually wrote an article at jasonwright.com about this, about the importance of traditions. And I mentioned in there, I will not be that parent that makes Rylan and Abby's holiday miserable because they have that tension between, do they come to our house or their future husband's houses and their in-laws. I won't do that. What I'm going to do, my strategy is just to create traditions and recognize them and always have it such that that's where they want to be. That's where they desire to be. And here's the reason why we have to do this, why it's so important, I think, is like, I know that whenever I was growing up, we had all these old, 8mm films? I think that's right. The old school home movies with no sound, the kind that Clark's watching whenever he's up in the attic and he finds the box full of old videos, those kind. We look back at those videos and what do we call that? We say, well, those were the good old days, right? Well, here's the thing that has become more and more apparent to me each and every day, each and every year, and certainly each and every holiday season, is that we're living in the good old days. This is it. This is them. These are the good old days right here, right now. We will one day look back and these will be the good old days. And so knowing that, why would we not do everything in our power to make them the best of good old days? And I wanted, while we're right here at the first of the holidays, if you have never really taken stock or created any traditions, these are just a few that we do. Okay, I'm going to give you a list of some of the things that we do, and these are just over the holidays. Now, my poor girls, good grief, I could write them a whole book, and maybe I should for the grandkids about all the little traditions, everything from the MO for when the Tooth Fairy came to the Easter Bunny to movies we've watched. Like, for example, every Father's Day when the girls were growing up, we would watch Father of the Bride, the remake with Steve Martin. That was just our movie that we were. And now, even though we're not all together with Abby in New York and Rylan in Atlanta and us and Jimlin and I here in Tyler, we will still watch it on Father's Day, even if we're not together. Of course, now I've kind of, thanks to Mrs. Wright, we've kind of snaked a new tradition in, which is Father's Day in the Hamptons. And we actually watched Father of the Bride on Father's Day, leaving the Hamptons this past year in the car, going back to LaGuardia. So that was, so see, it's just these things that remind you of things that happen on this day that are special, that bring you all together. And so that's one that we have. Another is leaving out carrots for the reindeer. The girls leave carrots out for the reindeer every year now to this day. And they still leave Santa his milk and cookie, which I know that's one that everybody kind of does. And here's something that I do too. And dads, don't be afraid to do this. And if you do it right, guys, if your kids are really young, if you do this right, it doesn't have to end. And look, Jimlin always, she teases me because she'll ask me, what were the girls like when they were little? Did they give you trouble here? Did they disobey or whatever? And I'm like, I can't relate. My girls were perfect. They never acted out. They never, they were not rebellious. And yes, I do see them through rose-colored glasses. I admit it. But they were pretty freaking awesome. Rylan and Abby made parenting pretty easy. And so maybe they do this partially just to please me, but I really don't think they do. This next one I'm about to tell you. Every Christmas Eve, after they have watched with me, after they have endured, because it's not their favorite movie, they don't really enjoy it that much, but they do stay up with me and watch It's a Wonderful Life, my favorite movie of all time. And then when it's over, they sit beside me and I read 'Twas the Night Before Christmas to them. And what's funny about this, okay, they are 23 and 24 years old. And it starts out when we grab the book, it's kind of like this, okay, let's do this for Dad, whatever. But by the time we're into it, we're still looking at that. We have this one book that some friends of ours, John and Gina Bauer, if either of you happen to be listening, we still read the one that you gave us on Ryland's first Christmas. And it's beautiful. It's beautifully illustrated. And we will still look at the book and point out the things we like in the scenes, just like when they were little girls. It's awesome. And then before you know it, they're in rapture, and it's like I'm reading to them when they were 2 and 3 years old. It's so fantastic. And to me, that's what makes the holiday special. Another thing that we do, as a little hint for you guys, a little something you may want to try. I started, oh gosh, I don't know. It was years ago. I don't know. The girls were pretty young. Probably junior high-ish. I started giving them every year a, air quotes, daddy gift. What is a daddy gift? A daddy gift has nothing to do with material value. It's not going to be a pair of golden goose or some stupid like design or something. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be some over-the-top thing that they want that's just from Dad. It's going to be something incredibly personal. For example, last year, I mentioned that Abby is a chef. Not a professional chef. She didn't get paid. She did get paid to be a chef when she was at CU Boulder. She was a personal chef, but I call her a chef because she's that good of a cook. But one of the things I gave her was a personalized chef's knife. If you know anything about cooking and if you know anything about chefs, their knives are very, very important to them. So I bought her a really nice chef's knife and had it engraved with the goose, which I've always called her Goosey or the goose. And so I had it engraved. So that was her daddy gift. For Rylan, a few years ago, she and I both share a love for The Office. Love The Office. Well, I am a sucker for an Instagram ad. And they have got me dialed in because a lot of my Instagram ads make for great daddy gifts. So a couple of Christmases ago, they were selling this little music box that played the Office theme song. It's so cool. So that was Ryland's daddy gift, and I think it was like $27. It wasn't that expensive. So the daddy gift has nothing to do with price or anything like that. It's very personalized, and I specifically did it. And some of you may disagree with me. Frankly, I could care less. I'm going to stick by this. I believe that one of the most important things in a girl's life, for sure, is her relationship with her father. I think there's something special. Now, there's for a whole set of other reasons. Her relationship with her mom is special as well. I'm not saying that, but it's just different, and there's something about it. And I think it's very important, dads, that I refuse to be the Homer Simpson dad. I'm not going to be the freaking Family Guy dad, Homer Simpson dad, Hank Hill dad. I'm not going to be the aloof, bumbling, Al Bundy, jackass dad. Not going to do it. I'm going to know who my daughter's friends are. I'm going to know as much as the girls will allow me to know, what they're into, things that are concerning them, things they worry about, ways that I might be able to help them. I really want to have a personal connection with them. And the daddy gift gives you a way to do that. And the daddy gift gives you a way to create those little intimate bonds with your daughter that show, hey, I get you. This is our thing. It'll be completely different. Abby loves teacups. I used to always make Abby a spot of tea when she was little. She asked for a spot. That was our little thing. Would you like a spot of tea? And from that came her collection of teacups. And so therefore, every Christmas, I usually get her a new teacup. And so that's our thing. Rylan could care less about tea or teacups. Not her thing. But Rylan, getting her the little gift from The Office and something that has to do with a movie we like or something like that, that's her thing. It's very personal. And so what it does is it's a way to individualize the relationship that you have with each child. If I had a son, he would get a daddy gift. It would be a gift that was something very illustrative and personal to our relationship. I think that's a really cool tradition. So anyway, these are just some things that we've done through the years, and I encourage, again, going back to Rylan and I, we always drink eggnog. Abby would choke and throw up on eggnog, but I'm always going to have eggnog at Christmas for Rylan. And Abby, they know I love cookies. They make me cookies every year, and it doesn't matter what's going on. They will be like, we've got to make Dad's cookies. And they make me the most amazing butterscotch cookies that I just completely blow everything out. The Improve Always and Always guide goes completely right off the rails with butterscotch cookies. Man, we even have a Christmas song we made up. It's called Johnny's Coming Home for Christmas, and it is obnoxious, and it is loud. The girls hate it. Anyone that has ever heard it hates it. But we're going to sing it. I wrote the lyrics. I made them up. It is so dumb. Don't worry. I'm not going to do that to you. But I would love to hear it. Okay, I'm probably going to post this on YouTube. And if this happens, if the algorithm decides that this is worthy of sharing, then please tell me some of your Christmas traditions, some things that you do that are fun, or just email me. I'd love to read them through the holidays. Producer@texttitans.com, producer@texttitans.com. Feel free to send me an audio message, email me an audio message, or just send me an email at producer@texttitans.com, or go to the Wrights, Mr. and Mrs., and DM me some of your traditions that you do. I would love to share those. And, look, it's November 19th. It's warm. We're ramping up. One of the things I would encourage all of you to do is to follow me on Instagram at the Wrights, Mr. and Mrs. One of the things that Jimlyn and I do is we watch a Christmas movie every single night from November 1st all the way through Christmas Day. Christmas Day, the tradition there is, thanks to TNT, we have a Christmas Story playing in a loop over and over and over and over. So while the girls are opening up their Santa Claus, and yes, Santa Claus is real and he does still visit our house. I don't care how old the girls are. I don't care where we go. Santa Claus will find us for as long as there's breath in me. Santa's going to know where I am. And he's going to get to me. And so while the girls are going through their Santa loot, Ralphie and Flick and the whole gang are on A Christmas Story playing in the background. every year without fail. That's a tradition. But tell me what your traditions are. Tell me what you guys do. I would love to share that because we're in the thick of it. But anyway, what I was saying is follow on Instagram. Mrs. Wright and I, we started making some of our movie recommendations, and I may do some more like episodes just on that, because here's the deal. Like if Christmas movies are really important to you, like they are us, because it just kind of sets the tone for the holidays, you don't want to waste your really, really good core Christmas movies like A Christmas Carol, Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story, It's a Wonderful Life. You want to put those off to like the last week before Christmas, right? I mean, you want to have a night where you save the big guns. Keep your powder dry, for the big guns. But along the way, you want those movies that kind of prime the pump. And so what Mrs. Wright and I have done is we started compiling some of the movies that we're watching that are, say, for instance, movies that aren't necessarily Christmas movies, but they take place at Christmas. Good example, the one that I just posted a little recommendation for was Grumpy Old Men. Grumpy Old Men is not a Christmas movie, but it does have Christmas and Thanksgiving in it. So therefore, it's good to watch just to kind of get in the spirit, get things going. Another thing that she and I will do, because we would run out of movies otherwise, we will watch the cheesy Hallmark movies and the made-for-TV and the full of green screen movies. I mean, some of them are so bad. But every once in a while, you will find a pretty nice little gem in there. And so we're talking about those so that you don't have to endure some crappy made-for-TV Hallmark movie and think, oh gosh, why did I waste my time on that? I thought it might be good because it had a good title or whatever, or maybe a good actor in it that you thought, okay, well, if that actor's in it, it might be good. We've probably watched it and we'll tell you. So go to The Wrights, Mr. and Mrs., follow me on Instagram, and we will give our reviews and recommendations. And then please, I implore you, give us some that you like. Give us some of the movies you think we should see that maybe we haven't. For example, Nicole Turner, thank you very much. Coco actually sent me one, Christmas in the Wild with Rob Lowe, and I'm drawing a blank on the actress's name. She was one of the girls on Sex and the City, and she's in Deck the Halls with Matthew Broderick. I love her. She played Brooke on Melrose Place. I know all of the characters that she's played, but I can't remember her name in real life. Kristen something or another, I think. But anyway, and so we're going to go back and watch that, and we'll report on it. So anyway, look, just check it out. And then also I get to, Mrs. Wright gives me the liberty to exercise some of my crazy Christmas antics on the Hot Tots account. So please follow us on Hot Tots. That's HAUTETOTZ. That's our business. And even if you don't have kids, you don't shop, follow us on the gram just for the fun. Trust me, you'll get to see a grown man make a fool of himself quite frequently. And that's it. I just wanted to talk about some traditions, and I want look, again, I am Clark W. Griswold. He lives within me. Clark lives within me. I am a Christmas junkie. So I would imagine a lot of these episodes are going to be filled with holiday, happy Christmas cheer. So just get ready. I hope that the holiday season is ramping up and kicking off to a good start for you. It is, in fact, the most wonderful time of the year, and I hope you and your family, you make the absolute best of it, because once again, the good old days, this is them. We're in them. Make them as good old days as you possibly can. Improve your good old days, always, in all ways. I am Jason. I am Mr. Christmas. I'm Mr. Gimlin. I'm Mr. Hot Tots. I'm the Hot Tots elf. I am the Hot Tots intern, and I am out.